Welcome into another edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Something's been gnawing at me, Keith. I tried to ignore it. The story's from a couple weeks ago, but it has to do with the potential of frustration with Tyrese Maxey. Not just Sixers fans being frustrated with where the Sixers are at, but Tyrese Maxey himself. We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase on the Gametime app. Keith, I don't know if you have this same thing going on or not. Maybe you're a sane person, unlike my crazy self. But, I'll hear something, and it'll just be this little seed that's planted in the back of my mind. I was like, nah, whatever. Not going to happen. So maybe 2 weeks ago, I saw this story from Kendrick Perkins. He was just breaking down the Sixers. The Joel Embiid piece had just come out on ESPN, and he was talking about what a dysfunctional organization the 76ers are and all that. And he said, basically, forget about the clock of Joel Embiid for a second and think about the clock of Tyrese Maxey when it comes to a growing frustration. I thought, Maxey's been great since he's been here. He's been the model citizen. He's getting involved with the community. Just signed this max deal. He ain't going anywhere. I'm not scared about it. I'm not even worried about it. And then the more I thought about it, I thought, this is a guy who literally told you at the end of last year, Keith, I don't play me. If you want to lose, I'm not stepping on the court to lose. And I hadn't heard that from anyone from the Sixers in all the years of the process and all that. I want to go out there and I want to win. That's what Tyrese Maxey's saying. That's a total flip of the culture that we've unfortunately grown accustomed to with this Sixers team. But is it a possibility that despite all the goodwill, the talent, the growth of the player as an individual in Tyrese Maxey, that he could grow tired of the Sixers seem to be tired of the situation the Sixers seem to be stuck in for at least the next 3 years of Tyrese Maxey's prime? Could it come to a head, Keith, where he himself wants out of Philadelphia because they can't figure out the right path to winning?
I mean, I think anything is a possibility, right? But do I think that that's going to happen? No, I don't. I think when you look at the 76ers, right now, Tyrese Maxey is a young player. He knows that, first of all, him and Joel Embiid are really good friends, very close friends. He has a pretty good relationship with Paul. We look at it, the 76ers just drafted VJ Edgecombe. You have a couple other players who are really good. I mean, by that time, in 3 years, Tyrese Maxey is going to elevate to the next level, hopefully. At this particular time, we're starting to see the changing of the guard gradually, where this is becoming Maxey's team. I feel like that when you say stuff like that, and I have the utmost respect for Perkins, I have the utmost respect, but it's kind of low-hanging fruit. I mean, we could have said this about anybody 5 years ago. Oh, wow, look at this. Maybe they're going to want to be out. But when you see where Maxey is set up to be the guy, to take over, to take the baton, and we're talking about, they got these next 3 years, and when Maxey comes off the books, is going to be at the end of the 2028-29 season, he's going to get another bag if everything goes right, 2029-30, right before they move into that arena. I don't see Maxey going anywhere unless this thing completely falls apart. I think that they're setting it up for, we want to win now, but we also got VJ coming up. We have a couple other guys. Maxey is rooted in Philadelphia. I don't see that, no, at all. I just don't.
Yeah, so I agree. And look, the money is certainly pointing in the direction of he ain't going anywhere anytime soon or anything like that. But the thing that I go back to is you talk about over like the last 5 years and all that. Well, we've seen Jimmy Butler come and go, not on his, on his desire. You saw Tobias Harris get re-signed. You saw Ben Simmons get out of here. You saw James Harden leave, and now Paul George is here, and this ain't working out either. At what point does winning overtake what the money could pay and Tyrese Maxey not want to be here, given the revolving door of stars that have either been drafted here, acquired to come here to try to get this Sixers team over the edge? At what point do you just look at an ownership group and say, look, I want to win, and this team just can't figure it out? To use another word that Perkins used recently to describe the 76ers, I don't necessarily agree with this word now, but for what they have been in the past, dysfunctional. Can this group ever really figure it out in terms of putting a winning team together?
Yeah, and it's all good, but again, it's all like low-hanging fruit from like we're in the past. Now, here's the thing. Like, here's a prime example. So Maxey is set up to be the man here moving forward, right? I mean, Joel Embiid already called him the franchise, right? Yeah. He calls him the franchise. We all know that Joel Embiid is handing off the baton. I hate to be repetitive, but where is Tyrese Maxey going to go right now where he's going to have this type of impact on a roster, right? Mm-hmm. And you look at it like, Dame Lillard wanted to leave. He wanted to be traded. He wanted to do a lot of different things, right? Well, a lot of people said, okay, Dame, you tore your ACL. You can go to Boston. You can go to Miami. They'll rehab you. You'll be the guy. Dame ended up going back to Portland, right? So to me, it's kind of like it's one of those things where, yes, everybody wants to win a championship and you want to do this and you want to do that, but the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I honestly think that, right now, yes, the 76ers, if they could maybe make some trades, try to get from underneath these contracts, it will benefit them. But at the same time, you're going to leave and go to a team where you may not be the guy. Mm-hmm. You just may not. Like, there's been a lot of people. Look at Russell Westbrook. He wanted out of OKC at that particular time, right? He's been a journeyman. Never had the same impact that he had at OKC. You look at Kevin Durant, the same, like he leaves OKC, they win a couple of championships and Golden State. Then he wanted to decide his own fate again, and it hasn't worked out for him. So to me, it's one of those things where Maxey is still a young player. He's becoming more and more of a leader. He's transitioning to the face of the franchise. I don't see where he can go elsewhere and do the same things. I just don't. I don't. Now, again, I'm talking about as far as the role that he has. He can develop into that, but I just don't see it. I mean, and I don't see the 76ers trading him. He can ask to be out. He can do whatever. But, at that particular point, you got to realize when his contract is up, Joel Embiid's contract is going to be up. The TV deal is going to be crazy. The Sixers are going to be able to offer him more money than any other team, more. And you look at it, and VJ Edgecombe is he's going to be a fourth-year player. Jared McCain is going to be a fifth-year player. I think that Maxey is probably going to want to stay. He's going to want to stay.
Yeah, the only thing that I see as motivation to leave, and obviously the money outweighs it, but you think it does, is that this guy just doesn't want to waste his prime years. And I think over the next year, I think we're going to find out a lot about Tyrese Maxey this year, because there's going to be no resting anybody as long as you don't have a first round pick. Like, you rest your stars, you rest your starters, you rest your best players towards the end of last year and the last quarter of the season to see how bad you can really be. That there's no carrot dangling in front of you this year, like we talked about yesterday. So I think this is going to be one hell of a year where we find out just how good Tyrese Maxey can be, both as, a skilled basketball player, and then the other also as a leader, because you talk about things going downhill, Keith. This, as we all know, unfortunately, this season could go downhill really quick. And that's what's the most frustrating thing about it, I think, for Sixers fans, is that this could be great, but likely won't be great. And maybe your most likely scenario is mediocrity, unfortunately. But think about this from a perspective of somebody who really wants to win at this level. That's obviously Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe. We're going to get into the culture shift, hopefully, that the Sixers will be undergoing in the not-too-distant future in our next segment. But that seems to me to be something that could be gnawing at Tyrese Maxey and eventually push to him, as I see him as a light at the end of the tunnel to get through this kind of period of Sixers basketball that we're going through right now. And if that light starts to go out a little bit because he wants to shine somewhere else, that's something that is not going to leave the back of my head until you really see something develop here that could be special in the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, and the one thing that we got to point out, too, is like a lot of guys, they talk about leaving. See, people talk about leaving to get championships towards the end of their careers, right? Oh, I want to be on a championship winning team. But for the most part, they want to get bags, right? Yeah. So, they do. And we'll look at it, whereas, Joel Embiid is going to make $67.1 million in the 2028-29 season, whereas the 2028-29, Maxey is going to make 46.3. Well, it's all about, at that point, let me see if I can get paid. And then after when and he's going to be 29 at that time, around 32, 33 is when dudes start saying, hey, it's time to join forces, so to speak, and get paid. And I'm going to be honest with you, the way these restrictions are now, with the second apron and all that, Maxey might go somewhere and realize I can't get the money that I really want to get. So he may be better off staying here until, that time is now. But yeah, I don't see it, man. And again, believe me, I call myself a realist. Some people might say that I'm a Sixers hater or whatever. But I just keep it real. But it's easy to say how dysfunctional they are and how Maxey wants to get out of here. But everybody know in the NBA, dudes chase money. They chase money before they chase championships. And Maxey is one of those things where his mom and dad they sit right near the scorer's table, right next to the bench. His girlfriend and his best friend sits on the floor right across from, and his uncle right across from the opposing team's bench, right? He has a trainer, a physical therapist who now flies with the team, right? It's like, dude, he has straight star power and treatment on this team right now. Like, seriously, people will tell you that, Joel Embiid is the franchise player, but this is becoming Maxey's team.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. You mentioned that word again, dysfunctional. I want to talk about that when we come back. And also, I want to get a little bit into this Players Tribune story with VJ Edgecombe, because I think it goes hand in hand with the culture the Sixers are now trying to create on South Broad Street. Talk about that in a second. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. And how about that Gametime app? Want to go to the game, the concert, the comedy show? Gametime app has you covered, especially when you're talking about tip-off, you're talking about first pitch, you're talking about kickoff, face-off, whatever. Last minute, you want to decide to go to the game with some friends, family, what have you? Gametime has you covered. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, and prices drop. Actually, the closer you get to showtime or first pitch or kickoff, you could save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal? Well, Gametime Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what your view will be for that seat that you're buying? Well, you can view the seat's vantage point before you buy the ticket. So you're literally taking the guesswork out of buying tickets. So how about this? Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's promo code LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So before we get, Keith, into the Players Tribune article on VJ Edgecombe, another word, and this isn't going to be the Kendrick Perkins show, but it is a word that he used, and it was dysfunctional. Now, this is something I dismissed because, unfortunately, right now, I don't think this. Right now, the Sixers are not. I don't think they're dysfunctional. I think they were extremely dysfunctional going through the Hinkie era, the Colangelo era. Unfortunately, there was a dysfunction, obviously, at the end of the Jimmy Butler brief era here in Philadelphia. But the unfortunate thing is, right now, I don't think I would love for them to be dysfunctional over what they are right now, which I think, unfortunately, is incompetent. I'd rather them be dysfunctional. I'd rather them not have all the pieces coming together than them think they have the pieces together. Mm-hmm. And that's where I see the Sixers at right now. So I think in the past, very recent past, you could describe them as dysfunctional. But right now, I don't even think they know what their function is, unfortunately, Keith.
I think there's still some dysfunction. I do. I think the fact that Embiid article basically uncovered some things. Like, there's still some dysfunction. Like, the fact, and to me, when you have Daryl Morey coming out, saying we think Embiid's going to come back, and then all of a sudden he's like talking about the stuff that he's talking, there's some dysfunction there.
Right, but be ready for the start of the season. Morey's saying be ready for the. I'll agree with that. That's definitely dysfunction. Morey's saying he'll be ready for the start of the season, and Embiid being like, I ain't rushing anything.
Yeah. It's like, yo, yeah. I mean, like this, yeah. I think there's some dysfunction still. Certain things that happen, but again, it's like they do have a cultural problem, right? But it's something that's been going on for a while. It's something that has to be addressed. Is it getting better? It could, right? You know what I mean? It could. I just feel like it's maybe not as bad as it was before, but it's still there. It really is. I mean, the fact that this article came out lets you know how dysfunctional the situation is, because it's kind of like, that's not how you win. It's just not. Where you have players not wanting to, like, shutting down for the season, or where the whole thing where when Embiid talked to Lisa Salters and the team came out and said, no, everything is great. Everything is great. And then, like, next thing you know, instead of him like telling Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse what's going on, he basically tells the owner, and then he doesn't, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's still some dysfunction.
I would agree there still is some. I don't think it's the biggest problem the Sixers have anymore. Like, if you cover over the last 5 years or so, and you really think about how bad it was, like, maybe the dysfunction of yesteryear is making the dysfunction of today not look as bad. Like, you don't have the GM with burner accounts and his wife with burner accounts. You don't have the NBA forcing themselves into the situation to remove a general manager and bring somebody else in. You don't have, 3 different people in like a 20-minute span having the last say on what you do with the roster. Well, that's dysfunction. But yeah, I guess as it pertains to just Joel Embiid more than anybody, that is still very much a problem. And I think it's because of the dysfunction of the past that is leading to more dysfunction now. Whereas Joel Embiid is telling you again, hey, I'm not going to rush back. I'm going to take everything at my own pace. And as you pointed out, he said that in the ESPN article. Meanwhile, you have Daryl Morey now, I believe, at the draft and at the Summer League saying we expect Joel Embiid to be ready for the start of the season. I have a lot of doubt as to whether or not Joel Embiid is going to be ready for the start of the season. And that is more so because that Joel Embiid doesn't trust anybody with this organization. He is in a state right now where he doesn't trust them with his future. He's in a state right now where he's saying, I can't trust you when it comes to my injury. I'm going to trust my own group. And when I'm ready to come back and I'm ready to really let it rip again and hopefully play at the highest possible level I could play at, that's when I'll come back and play for you. So in the meantime, Sixers, you sit there and be patient. Yeah, I could label that as dysfunction.
Yeah, and also, like, here's something else that we're not talking about, man. Like, not last year, but the year before that, Kelly Oubre gets into an accident, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Like, things that happen to the Sixers are not normal, like that normally happen to other people. Or you have, you know, James Harden saying Daryl Morey is a liar. I will not play for him. But then at the same time, he's trying to force himself onto the plane because he wants to be in there. Like, no, stay away. You know what I mean? So it's some dysfunction. Yeah, it is. And it's more so a cultural thing. You know, it's like you got to clean house for the most part. You have to in order for it to get better. Because, you know, these are things that have been happening for a long time. Like, you know, I've been covering this team since 2013, 14. And you know, you had, you know, the Jalil Okafor situations, fighting and, you know, on Thanksgiving. You had him like going, in Boston. You had him going across the Walt Whitman or Ben Franklin going over 100 miles an hour. So it just seems like every 2 years is always something. You know what I mean? It just seems that way. It just does, you know? So
I agree.
Yeah, it just seems like it's always something.
Real quick, I want to get this in. This is right out of Shams Charania putting this out there. Ricky Council IV, 1-year contract with the Brooklyn Nets. That's the way that's worked out for Ricky Council IV. So, hey, good for him. We'll be seeing some Ricky Council this year. As far as the culture, to go back to that, I haven't done a deep dive on this Players Tribune article yet, but I've certainly skimmed it. And one of the things that keeps on repeating, and it's written by VJ Edgecombe, obviously, it's Players Tribune. And it's a really interesting piece. I don't know if you got a chance to read it or skim it yet, but it's really interesting in that the repeating theme in it is his culture and coming from the Bahamas and how he started playing basketball and how he just had this early love for the game. When he was about 7 or 8 years old, he started playing. And there was one coach that he had in there that unfortunately passed away a while ago. I believe he had him on the liner of his jacket during draft night, which is pretty awesome. But he talked about just kind of the love of the game, having to be peeled off the court by his aunt who lived close to this one court. I think they called it the Pond in the Bahamas. And he said that this was just something that was just in him. He just knew he had this love of basketball. And one of his first coach really was the one that said to him, hey, look, you're going to play in the league one day. So his effort was like, I don't want this guy to be wrong. So I'm going to make sure that I hone my skills and get better and better each day. And they would play these pickup games. They would play these like rec ball league games and all that stuff. But he's like, don't get me wrong. We were playing games. We were having fun, but it was very, very competitive, even at those young ages, that early stage of just kind of learning the game. And first off, just as the story, as someone who loves a good story like anybody, it's a great story about VJ Edgecombe's upbringing, raised by his mom and his grandmom, and how he just fell in love with the game of basketball, and it would get him off the island and all that stuff, and living off a generator and all this stuff that I know a lot of people know about already. But I'm listening to it and reading it in a context of, wow, what a great story for this young man to develop his love of the game and skill in the game. And now I'm reading it also from the perspective of someone who wants to see something change drastically with the Sixers. And I'm thinking, this is the type of personality that you need in this locker room with the Sixers. You already have someone who we've mentioned many times already in Tyrese Maxey, who just wants to win, wants to go out there and leave it all out there on the court. Any opportunity he gets, he wants to do that. You already have a guy like Jared McCain, for instance, who people were talking about last year like he was going to be a part-time G League player between that and the NBA, part-time NBA, part-time G League. Even Nick Nurse saying that when training camp started last year. And then he comes from this great program at Duke, and then he turns heads for 23 games, getting better and better and looking like the rookie of the year before an injury unfortunately took over. And now you've drafted a guy like VJ Edgecombe with this kind of background. I know you just said that this is kind of a changing of the guard, a passing of the baton and all that. But to me, it's really hard for these guys to really take off if you still have some of the old guard here. And the old guard's not only here, they're going to be here for quite some time. So how do you somehow have this culture influx with these 3 new players here, 3 younger players here, while still having Paul George under contract and Joel Embiid's extension yet to kick in for another 3, or yet to kick in until next year?
That's the tough part, because, and I'm glad you said that, because I was afraid you were going the opposite direction.
Oh, no.
No, the culture changed. See, here's the problem. I mean, you can do whatever. Like, okay, there was a picture yesterday, or a video yesterday of people singing happy birthday to VJ Edgecombe and Jared Walker, right? Okay. And, everybody was raving, saying, look at the culture. It's great. It's great. Well, I watched the video, and maybe I missed a couple people, but in the video, it was Tyrese Maxey. It was Justin Edwards. It was Walker. It was Edgecombe. It was Hunter Silas. It was Janai Broom. And I want to say Don Barlow.
Okay.
And everyone was raving over how the culture is changing. The one thing that I didn't see were any veterans. I didn't see Embiid. I didn't see Paul George. I didn't see Kyle Lowry. I didn't see Eric Gordon. I didn't see Kelly Oubre. I didn't see Andre Drummond. So to me, when you see guys like that, you see Tyrese Maxey putting in some work, but then you see rookies who know that I got to come in and get up to speed. I see two-way guys who know I got to come, because maybe it's one of those things where if I don't come, then they don't think I'm working hard enough, right? Mm-hmm. So the question is, in order for the culture to get better, it has to be led by the best players, by your leaders, right?
Definitely.
And so, yes, VJ and Tyrese and all those other guys, but in order for the culture to get better, Joel Embiid has to be in the gym. Joel Embiid has to be on the bench. When he's not playing, Joel Embiid and all the rest of the guys have to be around, because you guys are great, and they always are great, and they work hard, but you need to have a veteran do it, because not to say in this instance that VJ Edgecombe is going to change, but certain guys come in, they say, oh, they do it differently here. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you need the leadership to do it, because as good as VJ Edgecombe is and all that, he doesn't have a huge voice in the locker room at this time. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
It's George, it's dumb, is all of it. But again, you can say, like, they didn't have to be there, because I'm pretty sure these guys are on vacation. But what people were saying was like, yo, look at this. This is great. No, these guys have to be there. They're always there. They're always there. But at the same time, don't make that seem like things are different now. But when these type of guys have always been there, because they have to be.
Mm-hmm. Want to get a couple comments in here before we get. Actually, I'm going to save on the comments for a second. We just got a quick pause. We'll be right back after this on Locked On 76ers, including, I'll ask the question I ask every day. Is Grimes signed yet? We'll talk about that in 1 second. All right, before I get the comments, hey, Keith, is Quentin Grimes signed yet?
Mm-mm.
All right, thank you.
But Ricky Council is.
Ricky. How about that? All right, let's get a couple of comments in here real quick. Chip Season Birds, what's going on? That handle is suspect of Edgecombe. There was a couple comments here from B Water. B Water, thank you for chiming in. I see you early and often here. Wait, where is that? There we go. B Water. Embiid, when he plays, he is a great regular season player, but when the playoffs come, he gets hurt again. Yeah. That's in the back of my mind, unfortunately, that even if he comes back and he looks great, I'm haunted by it, Keith. I can't deny it. And I'm not rooting for it. I want him to be healthy and 100% and an MVP and lead the Sixers to the championship just as much as anybody else. But I can't help but think, even if he comes back healthy, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one? Also, B. Water says he grew up in North Philly. He wishes he had a generator. So there you go. Mark Jackson's going, Keith said we have to clean house. I feel like we've been doing that since day one. It's always something because we clean house every year.
That's a good point. That's a good.
Yeah, it does. It feels like that with the rotating star.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good point in regards to like continuity and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, you know, I think that what I mean by that is like if people don't, I think that, you know, you got to get rid of, I'm not going to say the problems and stuff like that, but if people can't be leaders and you realize they can't, then sometimes it comes a point where, you know, that maybe that person, it's time for them to leave, like whoever that person is on any organization, right? But yeah, you are correct in the point where it does seem like the 76ers have been in reloading mode. I'm not going to say rebuilding, but reloading, because they kept the same core, but at the same time, all the second or the third or the fourth options are always different. And you do have a point. But in regards to it, just seems like sometimes you may have to go into a total rebuild, a total one, because now I understand you have Maxey now, but a total rebuild, because if you keep doing the same thing and you keep getting the same results, then it's not working.
Gotcha. Charles also wants to say, is Paul George going to be ready for the first game of the season, Keith? What's your gut tell you on that?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know what? I would say, if what my gut is telling me, I would probably say, since they're so far out, that maybe the first game of the season, I could see that. I don't know about the first preseason game, but maybe the first game of the season, maybe. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want him to do anything he doesn't have to do, but then there's the balance of like building the chemistry because you barely played together and all that. But I think I'll err on the side of don't do anything in the preseason. You got the knee contusion last year, and that delayed everything and threw everything else off. So if I could just get a consistent Paul George and let him build his camaraderie and chemistry with everybody else, then I think we'll all be in a better place. That's for sure. Keith Pompey, always a pleasure, my friend. I know we're going to be catching up after the weekend on Monday to talk all things 76ers, see if anything changes. I'll just go ahead and do a Grimes watch for the next 2 days. Does Quentin Grimes get signed in the next 2 days, Keith?
No.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you guys hit like and subscribe. Make sure you guys are reading everything from Keith Pompey on Inquirer.com. Phillies fans, I got you this weekend. We got the Detroit Tigers series with a couple new pieces to the Phillies after the trade deadline, Harrison Bader. And how about this one? This is a fun name to say. Johan Duran. Your new closer for your Philadelphia Phillies. So we got postcasts throughout the weekend with your Phillies as well on the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel. So make sure you like and subscribe, just like you're liking and subscribing the Locked On 76ers as well. We'll catch you guys on Monday. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Barzetta. Have a great rest of your day. And also don't forget to be the most informed NBA fan. Make sure you guys are listening to Locked On NBA podcast, where there is no off season. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to know as an NBA fan. Find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. That's Locked On NBA Podcast, your network on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Catch you guys Monday. See ya.